New videos every day.
Hi, I'm Anna Miller, founder and CEO of the Depression Project, and I'm back again with John Breeding, who you can find at Wild as Colts. We would take up the whole 10 minutes if we talked about how qualified John is to have this conversation, and he's a very humble guy as well. So is there anything you want to say?
Hello.
Hi. So you spent some time interviewing me, and thank you for that, to kind of pull out my story so that there was another way for people to access that. And I really want to ask you some questions. The Depression Project, my own experience and the assumptions that I have, I'm really interested to get your take on them. So first question I have for you is, if depression, bipolar anxiety, and let's just group them like that because you know that's what I do, and if you want to make distinctions, we can, are not a biological problem, then what? What's going on?
Well, what they're definitely not is a scientifically validated brain disease. Even though that's the propaganda and the constant hype, that it's all about a chemical imbalance and a brain disease, and it's all genetic and biological, and that is the primary causal factor. There's definitely no scientific evidence to validate that, and there's definitely no objective test or indicator of that. Obviously we're biological beings, obviously we're chemical beings, and obviously we're physiological beings, but we're multidimensional. And when you look at what's the primary causal factor, for example, with behaviors or expressions that get diagnosed as bipolar, some people have found out that they have an underlying thyroid problem, that creates kind of psychiatric symptomatology. That's not a mental illness, that's a thyroid problem that causes, emotional and mental phenomenon. Similarly, a lot of people with called depression, have blood sugar problems, and due to imbalanced diet, eating too much sugar, drinking too much, or just, a tendency towards a diabetic kind of condition. And again, that's a physical, biological condition that creates emotional and mental, psychological kind of symptomatology. So that's valid one level. What I know, though, as a human being and as a psychologist is that human beings are free agents. We make decisions, and human beings are also have intense needs growing up, which if they're not well met, they cause all kinds of distress. And human beings are also very vulnerable, and meaning able to be hurt and wounded. And the effects of hurt are such that, and the effects of trauma are such that they can cause a whole range of things that get called symptoms. In fact, if you really study trauma and you look at all the effects of trauma and you list all those over here, and then you list all the diagnostic criteria for these different so-called mental illnesses, you'll find the same expressions in both categories. Everything that's labeled as a mental illness, is also an effect of trauma. So you can just pull out whatever diagnosis, So people get hurt, and when you're hurt, it causes distress, and that distress expresses itself physically, but also psychologically, emotionally, and mentally, and in relationships. And what I do know is that it doesn't help to pathologize that. It doesn't help to put a label on it, that says you're mentally ill and you have this disease that you just have to live with. What helps is some support and understanding and allowance of a process. Because the good news is, even though we're able to be hurt, we also have a natural built-in mechanism for healing and recovery. And we also have a natural urge towards wholeness and growth. And so any hurts in there are naturally wanting to be expressed and released and healed. And also any limitations, not necessarily from a specific hurt, but just a place where there's a next step in terms of your psychological and spiritual growth and expansion is going to come up. And if that's not allowed to come up, it's going to create distress, and there's going to be symptoms, maybe in the body, maybe pain in the back or an upset stomach or a headache, maybe emotionally, maybe in terms of a thought process, maybe in terms of how I handle relationships. There's all these different channels of expression and feeling, right? But what helps is safe space and support and tolerance and acceptance and allowing and encouraging the full experience to come forward. A lot of times what we call symptoms are like blocked experience, processes that are attempting to unfold that are shut down. So it's called a pain in the back or a headache, or it's called this depression or whatever, And the idea is that a lot of times if you're able to recognize that, and especially the areas where you don't see it, but it's there and it's nagging at you, or especially the places that just kind of come out of the blue, like this mental illness, or this headache, or this depression, or this panic attack, or all these different things that sort of seem like they drop on us out of the blue, It's like there's something there that is really trying to get our attention, and by accepting, allowing, getting some support with that, and then seeing what the expression really is. That's why it's so sad that we have this whole pharmaceutical cornucopia that just shuts everything down, and basically inhibits and suppresses the process of human psychological and spiritual growth and transformation. I mean, you're a great example, in spite of all that suppression, like you said, you had this amazing determination, that wouldn't give up, and you came through it, as a deeper, richer, fuller person, who now has these awarenesses and insights and gifts, and also this relatively unflappable kind of energy that can see things and not get all by it, which is why you're a great mom, But it's a good training for parenthood, by the way.
There you go.
Anyway, that's a few thoughts.
Well, yeah, that's really great. I love to just let you go because you have so much to say about it. I can tell you from my own experience of having the bipolar label and being treated as though there's this pathological problem that I have going on. It created a lot of layers of major trust issues for me in my life. The healing has come in layers. It's not like I woke up one day and I was all better from the experience. The first phase was functional. I could, get back in the world and make a living for myself and get around. But it's only been, it's 10 years since the last drop of medication that I took and the last therapeutic intervention, traditional therapeutic intervention that I've taken. And there have been many, many phases of my ability to learn who I am, come into myself, and to discern in the world what's helpful and safe and what isn't. From inside the confusion that you talk about, someone's having a crisis. You really do need people that you can count on and you can rely on. And family's not it. God love them. They're there and they might pay the bills for you or keep a roof over your head. But often, certainly in my experience, they were part of the problem. I had to go and be somewhere else in order to get well. What would you say to someone who is like, yeah, I get that, but how do I find help? How do people find help that's not been tainted in this world of crazy?
Well, one good news is that the spirit hasn't been tainted and your basic nature hasn't been tainted. And so there is this organismic process that is there, and that the more that we can kind of trust and allow, even if it's by ourselves laying on the floor. Like I had an hour this morning where I'm laying on the floor in my bedroom on a blanket, right? And I'm processing this stuff in my body, and I'm processing this stuff in my throat, and I'm making all kinds of noises and growling and yelling and pounding and screaming because I just have all this physical, emotional stuff that's unfolding in my psyche right now for whatever reason, And And it's, and so there's one aspect of just, usually it's not that dramatic, by the way, but if there's fear or sadness, it's just allowing, and just that, and trusting that, eventually this too will pass. See, part of the problem is we confuse, you confuse the train station with the train. It's like, so bipolar or whatever, it gets called a permanent condition instead of this experience that you're going through at this time that you go through a different experience, So whatever it is, a panic attack is called a panic disorder, that's permanent or whatever, So it's like, it's just an experience of fear or whatever, or of grief or whatever. And so that's part of it, is that is there, and it's a matter of sort of reclaiming some trust in that, and just that you can allow yourself to have feelings, because feelings are really, to go through the feelings fully is really the way to get the discernment back, and to get the clarity back. You have to go through this experience in your body, and physically and emotionally. And so there's that. Now, beyond that, that's the basic problem, is that authentic, safe asylum is so hard to come by because of the fact that, the psychopharmaceutical industry has basically, got control of the government. They've got control of the mental health services. They've got control of the universities. And so the psychiatric hospitals, the institutions, are not generally safe asylum. They're places that you go to get drugged and or the backup treatment of electric shock. And so it is a challenge to find the individuals in your community or in your friendship group. Like you found a group that taught neurolinguistic programming or whatever, and you learned NLP, that was probably helpful, but mostly you got support from there and could just cry all day or whatever you needed to do, because you found a safe group, that allowed you to process, a ton of that stuff, and so every situation I think you have to treat as unique, just like everything else in this society. If you have a lot of money, in some ways it's easier, in some ways it's not, though, because a lot of times you have a lot of money in insurance, then you use it to buy the best, and the best are the people that are going to hurt you the worst, like the esteemed university professors who do the drug trials and tout the electroshock. And so sometimes you're better off, just, I don't have any money, I can't go to the professionals, and so I just have to cry on my friend's shoulder. That's safer, mixed bag. There's a few dissidents out there. There's a lot of good counselors, who are pretty good at listening and stuff like that aren't necessarily all drug oriented, but you just have to really interview people and talk to them. And, there's a lot of good support, at least in validating and giving better information, that you can find on the internet, if you use some discernment there, for example, your depression project, and there's more and more of that kind of thing. So at least you can get, even if you feel like you're really missing that person to sit with you, you've at least got some space that says, you're not crazy, that you're not mentally, your refusal to accept your mental illness is not another symptom of your mental illness. That's my favorite. It's actually a strong sign of your rebellious spirit and your fighting for your integrity in your life, know. So,
John, thank you so much. We are out of time for this segment, but more with John Breeding, Wildest Cults, and Anna Miller, The Depression Project, in future interviews. Thank you, John.
Okay.
If you liked this video, we have hundreds of more alternative videos ranging from sexual health to psychology to mind control. So if you liked it, go ahead and click on me to enter the Psychetruth channel.